welcome to Wool and Spinning. My name is Rachel, and this is episode 179. I can be found pretty much everywhere as well for pearls, and I want to welcome you to this place. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Saturday, December 5th, 2020. We are officially into December and the last month of 2020. It's been a long haul for everybody, and I hope this finds you really well. To new viewers, thank you so much for checking out my channel and for checking out the podcast. And to returning viewers, thank you so much for continuing to watch and for continuing to tune in week after week to the podcast. Please, if you don't mind, hitting the like and subscribe button and even the notifications button, that would be really great. I've been working on an Advent vlog every day since December 1st started. I'm hoping I can get all the way through to the 24th, but we'll see. I know that on the days that I work, there won't be one, but that's okay. So if you want to watch those and see those, just hit the subscribe or the notifications button so that you see when they're published. And to patrons, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me in the live stream. We live stream the show every week for the Patreon community, and we spend some time here chatting about our projects and what we're working on, spinning, mostly spinning, all spinning, and working with our hand spun yarns. So I hope you guys are having a really wonderful morning. You guys are already chatting away in the chat. I'm just glancing down here and looking. There's like multiple pages for me to scroll back through. I actually thought that I was going to need to let you guys know that the show was going to start 5 minutes late because I was on hold on the phone. I had put in an order for us to get groceries because we're still supposed to be at home and trying to minimize how much we're out. So Mike and the kids were going to go pick up groceries because the kids' soccer has been canceled now. So no more games. They're allowed to have physically distanced practices, but no more games. So they were going to go pick up the groceries for me while I was here with you guys. And for some reason, the time got changed. So we're picking the groceries up a little bit later. All right. Thank you, everyone, for saying hello to each other. You guys are chatting away. Good morning, good morning, good morning. What is Rachel wearing? This is Opposite Pole, I think it's called, by Joji Locatelli. This is knit in cheapy classic wool by like Patons. I think it was like $4 a ball. And I think it's called Opposite Pole. I knit it in, I think that I was either pregnant with James or I had just had him. I cast it on a whim. It was one of those sweaters that I cast on a complete and total whim. I saw the pattern and I had some yarn and I cast it on, and I kind of didn't know what I was doing in terms of like, fit and a weird construction. You start off by knitting the back here. You knit a rectangle, all of this cabling, you do a rectangle. And then you build the rest of the sweater off of that rectangle. And it was right as Joji was becoming a well-known designer. It was sort of as she was up and coming. People knew who she was, and they were starting to knit her patterns and really following her. So yeah, I didn't wear the sweater a lot after I made it. I would wear it like once in a blue moon. I wish the sleeves were a little bit tighter, the garter stitch cuffs. Just slightly, but it's funny because now coming back to it and wearing it now, I really like it, and it fits really well, and it's just cozy. I can cuddle up in it like this. I stand in the cul-de-sac with my hands up in it like this. It's almost like a built-in cowl. And I actually was thinking to myself yesterday when I was wearing it, maybe I should make another one. But I think I just need to do like one thing at a time. Like, slow down. I don't need to do all the things all the time. So let's get into the show. I wonder why there was no music. That's very strange. It should have had music and everything. The intro. Maybe there was a sound glitch. That's strange because you guys can hear me. I'll look at it later. Yeah, the collar is huge, and this cable detail on the collar, you would think that that it would be really labor intensive to knit around and knit all of this garter and all of this collar. But I remember thinking, because I was quite an experienced knitter at the time, but I had a newborn, and I remember thinking at the time how quick it went and how quickly it came together because you're knitting in a circle. So I'm not sure, and it's worsted weight, so that always goes a bit quicker when you're knitting on, I think it's 5mm needles. Let me see if I can find my project page. It was 5.5. 5.5mm needles. It used about 1,200 yards of yarn. And yeah, it's just super flattering, really easy fit. So thank you for the kind words. Okay, let's get into some housekeeping for the show. You're right, Eve Gremlins. We've got a little bit of housekeeping, but nothing much. If you're interested in learning more about what happens here at Wool and Spinning, please have a look at the show notes. They're available at patreon.com. I will put the link to the post in the live chat, and they are also in the live stream, in the box down below here on YouTube. We've got the newsletter that goes out every month. Those also will include the Maker Morning Zoom meeting. So we had our first one on Thursday. It was fantastic. It was for patrons of the community. For certain tiers, like from a certain tier up, and I think it's the coffee circle. Anything above the coffee circle, you guys will be invited. And there was about 22 people that showed up and were able to come, and we did a check-in. We just went around and everybody introduced themselves and shared with us a little bit about where they're from and what they're working on. We were trying to focus this month on languishing projects. If this is something that you would like to do going forward, and these are something that you would like to sort of make a part of our community, it's definitely something that we can work towards for sure. And we could do multiple throughout the month. So I have put it up on Patreon under our goals. So if you're wanting to learn more, please head over there or just reach out and ask me and I'll explain. Our community is always growing, and we always have things going on. We have our book club. We met yesterday. We're working on Northanger Abbey right now by Jane Austen. We also have our anti-racism book club that meets monthly, and we met this past Wednesday. I had a bit of a snafu, so unfortunately I wasn't able to get in, but I plan on being there going forward. So that was just this month. It was a bit of a snafu on my part. And in How I Spin, we're exploring blends right now. So part 1 has been released, and we're releasing part 2 as we speak, sort of over the next couple of weeks. So looking at blending the properties of fibers when we add them in blends, and how that affects our hand spun yarns, and some of the properties, tips, and tricks. We also have a whole bunch of alongs, so we'll be talking about those later in the show when we do community participation. But if you would like to participate, please have a look at the alongs, because we've got our natural shades along, our tin can knits along, and we also have our Zero to Hero and 51 Yarns Group A. They're finishing this month. 2 years of spinning, and they are finishing this month. Unbelievable. So 24 months, and they're done. So really, really amazing to those who finished and to those who saw it through. That's really fantastic. So I would really like to share with you a couple of things that I finished over the course of this past week, and I wanted to share with you some of my spinning. I have been working through an advent calendar, and this is from Kingdom Fleece and Fiber, and I'm not sure, Fiberworks, and I'm not sure if Liz is in the chat. I haven't seen her, but she is the... Oh, sorry, Diane, Mansfield Park. You know what? It's funny. I knew that because my Mansfield Park is sitting on my book, on my bookshelf, like on my bedside table. And as soon as I said Northanger, I was like, no, that's not what we're doing, Rach. Anyways, thank you, Diane. So the spinning calendar that I've been working on is 25 days of spinning. So every day I get a bundle of this amazing pin drafted roving from Liz. And I actually I like sparkle, and at this time of year, the days are dark and things have been very challenging this year, as you guys know. And so I decided, instead of getting the kit that was the flat one, I decided to go for the sparkle. So this is 10% sparkle, and then it's a blend of Columbia and Dorset, and every single day is a bundle of this. So if you've seen the Spinning Advent Calendar posts, the Spinning Advent vlogs that I've been posting every day, you'll have seen that I've opened up these little bags, and there's the fiber inside. This is from yesterday. No, I have not gotten it spun. Yesterday was a bit of a crazy day. And actually, I was working on something else yesterday, which I was really enjoying. And I sat down for the first time with book club, and I hadn't eaten my lunch. I had breakfast, but I hadn't had lunch. So I sat and ate with them, and then my mom called halfway through to sort out about after school. So it was just kind of one of those days where you feel like you're just like zing, 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 zing. So this was yesterday's, and I have not opened today's yet. So hopefully I will get a little bit of spinning done today, because I work tomorrow, so I'm getting really behind if I don't sort of pick up the pace a little bit. To be honest with you, I was trying to clear off bobbins. That was partially why I didn't stay caught up this week. And this time of year is busy. Like, it's just kind of a steady, busy time of the year. I'm sure, even though we're at home and we're physically distancing, there's just a lot going on still. So these are the first two skeins that I did finish. So actually, let me switch my cameras instead of trying to hold it up to you guys here. These are the first two skeins here. So the top one was day 1, and this one here was day 3. And you can see I've been spinning these woolen. If you've seen the Advent vlogs, you'll have seen how I spin them. Just have a look on my channel. They're all right there. They're the most recent uploads, because there's like December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And then this one was the one from the 3rd. So I guess that was Wednesday. And I thought this one was really, they're both really, really pretty. But I'll end up with 24 of these sort of mini skeins, if you will. And this is number 2. So number 2 would have gone in the center there. And so what I'm actually going to do is number them. And as I'm working through, like, this will be number 1, number 2. When they're done, I'm going to lay them out in order. And because on the 25th, what you get, sorry, a whole bunch of stuff just fell. On the 25th, what you get is actually 6 ounces of fiber to finish off. So it's kind of like your culmination. And this, because of how the box is laid out, like when you open it, you kind of have it right there. So this is 6 ounces of each color. So what I'm actually thinking about doing is I would really like to weave a big blanket on the 45-inch jack loom, on the Leclerc jack, and do a big, big, big blanket where these colors, so I'm spinning these quite high twists to be able to withstand being warped. And a wool warp doesn't need as much tension on it as a cotton warp does, but it still needs to be able to withstand a fair amount of tension. What I would really like to do is weave a big blanket. So that's kind of what's in the back of my mind. So I don't think that I will, I don't think at this point that I can knit something that would include all of the colors, because like this is only 2 skeins and it's already a lot of yarn. 24 skeins like this is a lot of yarn. So I'm thinking a big wool blanket. Yeah. Very cool, Megan. So she's doing a big wool blanket this year as well. That's fantastic. So we'll work on it together. Speaking of weaving, I did get some stuff woven this week. So these are Christmas gifts, and I can show them to you because the recipients they don't watch the show. These are dishcloths. They're not tea towels, they are dishcloths. So I wove these on my rigid heddle. I have a samplet, just a 10-inch samplet. And these are washed and finished. They're a little bit loose for the set, but I'm going to throw them through the wash again before I gift them away and repress them. But I was really having a lot of difficulty with the loom and with weaving cotton on the samplet. It's like the loom just can't tension the cotton. You set it and you have everything adjusted on the rigid heddle, and then as soon as you move the heddles, everything just goes slack. I didn't put a really, really super long warp on, so I don't think it's that the back apron rod is too heavy. It's like it just can't tension it properly. So I wove 4 of these to start. So there's 2 that are the same. I'll just hold them up here with you guys. So there are 2 that are woven like this. So though I put on a cream warp. So these 2 are the same. They are just a little 1-inch stripe, and I made these squares, so they're 8 by 8, 8 inches by 8 inches, because of draw in. So it's a 10-inch loom across, but with draw in, they end up being 8 by 8 weaving space, and then of course they cinch down a little bit more once you wash and finish them. So I think the finished is about 7.5 by 7.5, and I did hem stitching. I did the hem stitching quite tightly, and I wanted to leave the fringe on them, so I thought that was just really pretty. So that was those were those 2, and these are actually for my sister-in-law because her and my brother have a gray and teal, sorry, a gray and, well, I guess it's teal. It's a dark, dark teal kitchen, but then she has gold as the accent. So this one was the first one that I did, and it's just plain white. And I used one of my shuttle, I didn't use a shuttle stick for these. I used a boat shuttle to weave these. And then I did a 1 by 1 striping, which actually I like this one the best. I thought it was the most interesting. And this one was the 4th one that I did. So the fringe is already nicely fringed from going through the wash already, which is really lovely. So I'm going to give those 4 are for them. And then I'm hoping to pull off another 4 for my mom. And hopefully there will be 1 or 2 left over for us. So I'm just working through that. I don't like weaving the cotton on the rigid heddle very much. I would love to hear about other people's experiences, but it has certainly not been very enjoyable for me. And I did talk to Eve and Virtual Spin Group. I think it was Pam that I was talking to about it, about taking it off and putting it onto the floor loom, onto the Leclerc Compact, but there's not that much left. I can do another 4 and put up with it. And yeah, and I'm using 4/8 cotton. So I set it at 12 and a half for the set. 15, I tried it at 15. It was on the 15 dent heddle. It was way too thick. Like it was way too firm. And so the 12 and a half seems to be a nice fit. I had woven some little coasters of my very first weaving project on the Louette Jane when I was borrowing that from a friend. And that was 4/8 cotton, and we set it at 12. So I thought that, you know, I'd start there and see what if I liked the set. But the 15 was too high. I almost kind of, for these dishcloths, because they're not tea towels, like they're dishcloths, they're for actually using in the sink. I almost kind of wish that I could do a set of like 14. Like that would have been like perfect, or like 13 and a half. So that's one of the advantages to a floor loom, is I could have done that math and figured out how to get that set in between, but that's okay. Oh, okay, so Sherry just had the same thing happen with tensioning cotton on her 24-inch Ashford rigid heddle. She kept adjusting and tightening until she got blisters from trying. Oh no, that's too bad. Yeah, the cotton on my floor looms, no problem. The cotton on my rigid heddle, not so much. So, yeah. Yeah, wool on the rigid heddles is brilliant. But wool doesn't need as much tension. So I wonder if that's part of it. But yeah, it's just every time you move the heddles, it pulls on the cotton and it slackens it. So it's just not a good fit for me. Yeah, they're quick too, Carol. So she says, what a lovely idea for gifts. They're quick, right? Like versus doing big tea towels, which let's talk about my tea towels next. These, and then we'll get into the spinning. These tea towels are they're all hemmed and they are ready to be gifted. I'm just going to move over a little tiny bit so that I hope you guys saw I'll just move this a little bit. I hope you guys saw my Christmas tree and my lights in the background. I'm wearing my Christmas tree earrings. Trying to get a little bit Christmassy here. These were the towels that I put on the loom on New Year's Day along with the red pinwheel towels. So there was the red pinwheel towels, 4 picks of cream, 4 picks. I think it was actually natural was the colorway. It was these are 2/8 cotton. And I did 4 picks of natural and then 4 picks of red. It was like a cranberry red. I actually ended up having to borrow a cone from Katrina because I ran out. But I did 11 of those towels, and they ended up being the 4 shaft pinwheel. And then I did the same pattern but with more color on my compact. So same warp but different colors. And this went through, you can see at the bottom here, you can see how many colors this went through. I think in total there were 7 colors. 11 colors. And the first few towels, let me just dig them out. I stuck with the pattern and I stuck with my original plan to do 4 picks, because it was 4 ends per inch. Sorry, 4 ends of the color. And for the first 2.5 towels, I stuck with my plan. And I did, you know, 4 picks of each color, and I worked my way up. And I did that for the first 2.5 towels. And then the COVID hit, and I got really, I just couldn't keep going with them. So I got to here on the 3rd towel. Part of the problem was that one towel, you can imagine, was taking about, I don't know, 3 weeks to do. And because you're changing your shuttle every 4 picks. So you do 1 color and then switch your shuttle, and then 4 picks and then switch your color, and then another 4 picks, switch your color. It was just really intense. And the other problem was that when Mike and I were putting this warp onto the compact, so this is the 24-inch Leclerc compact, for whatever reason, I did something when I was warping. The tension on the threads wasn't correct. So there was quite a few threads that were either too loose or too tight or whatever. And so I had to keep going back and fixing stuff because there were mistakes in the weaving. And these 3 are pretty near perfect. But after that, there really started to be a lot of problems. This towel was when the problems really started. And then, of course, I reversed the weaving pattern. So by accident, there's 4 picks in there that went the opposite way. But that's okay. It's okay in the sense that that would be hanging to the back anyways, because the towel would be hanging on the towel rod like that. But it was really disheartening because as I was weaving, or as we were warping, we had to keep rebeaming. So rebeaming is where you warp it, pull the warp off, rewarp it, pull the warp off. And so that's called rebeaming, when you have to put the warp back on, basically. It was just kind of heartbreaking. So as the towels went on, I started to really simplify. And I decided to just do the color as an accent, the patterning. So that's what I started doing. So this is the 4th towel. So I wove a certain amount, did it in 2-2 twill to begin with. This is all 2-2 twill, and did the rainbow. I was inspired by colors that I had found in a Swedish art school online, the visual of the stuff that they had published. And then I went to a plain weave after that. But you can see there's a lot of mistakes in these, and this one's not too bad. There's a couple of skips and a couple of mistakes, but as you weave on, there's more and more mistakes. So I'll just show these to you really quickly. You can see this one is just chock full of mistakes, so this one I'll be keeping. I don't think any of these, except for 1 or 2 of them, will be gifted. They just unfortunately yeah, there's just so many mistakes in them. This one I really love. I love how this one turned out. I thought it's not white in the weft. This is actually the blue. So I thought that was really pretty with the white. I did 1 full repeat of color from white through to white. Oh, how do you bury your ends when you change colors that often? I just use the method that Jane Stafford uses on her online guild. And it is just incredibly labor intensive. And you just have to keep stopping and fixing it, and keep stopping and fixing it and putting them in. So unfortunately with the darker weft, you can see the mistakes even more so. I can go back and fix all this, and I do plan to at some point. I just don't think that that'll happen for Christmas. This one was going to be for my sister-in-law because of the teal for their kitchen, but now I'm not sure that that's what she wants for the accent in her kitchen, so they may or may not be getting this one. But the weft there is the teal color that's through the weaving. So I thought that was really pretty how it makes that when you have that weft color match one of the colors in the stripes, it makes that particular stripe in that region, it makes it solid, which is really neat. So like in the navy blue becomes the solid. And actually it plays tricks on your eyes because it makes the brown look solid as well, and it makes that rusty browny red look solid, which is kind of cool. The dark blue really picks up on that color. And then these last two are actually two of my most favorites. And my mom was looking at these the other day, and she actually kind of made an ooh and ah sound. So she actually might get these two. This one, the weft is the brown, and this one, the weft is the dark green. But instead of doing tutu twill, I just did tabby weave, plain weave. And I actually think these two turned out the best. So they look really nice, and they turned out really well. And by then these were the last two towels that came off the loom, and I finally kind of had the tension sorted out. And so at the end these two actually sort of ended up working out. So I think these two will go to my mom, and they turned out really quite nicely. And this is the back, this is the brown weft, and this is the dark green. And then I did a different hem. So the hem, 1.5 inches of weaving was yellow, and 1.5 inches of the weaving down here was the light blue. Just so that when I'm doing the hemming, I don't have to sit there with my ruler and measure as I turn the hem. I can just go by the line and turn, sew. It's way faster. And then the other thing that I did with the red towels, and I did it on these as well, although I stopped doing it because I realized that I wasn't going to give these as gifts after all. But I ended up in the middle, I sewed a bias tape tab so that these can be hung. Get my finger in there. So they can be hung on a towel, on a hook, really nicely like that. So I do these at about 1.5 inches long. And I put them in all of the red ones, and then with these ones I put them in the first few, and then I stopped putting them in because I realized that I probably wasn't going to gift them, and I don't put my tea towels on hooks. I have dish towel like hangers that hook into the cabinets, and then they hang over top of the front, and they're right at the bottom, right below the sink. So they hang below the sink there, and I don't use the hooks particularly, but I know other people do. So those turned out okay. Can you please do a video on how to hem tea towels? Yeah, I can do that, Eve. I actually have some photographs of hemming. I can post those if that's helpful. So this is a spin that I was working on in the background, and I was doing sort of covertly, if you will. Let me zoom this camera in a little bit so that you can really see this yarn, because it's just absolutely shockingly beautiful, if I do say so myself. It doesn't look like much, but this might actually be too close. This is 2-ply, 100% BC grown and cultivated, so British Columbia, cashmere. So this is from Harmony Farms, which is in Tappan, British Columbia. I think they're in Tappan. And yeah, 2-ply, spun from the cloud. And then I did the majority of the fiber, I actually did as a 3-ply. So I wanted to, there's nothing in cashmere to hold it together. And this is so soft, you guys. It's just unbelievable. It is so soft. There is nothing in cashmere to hold it together. Like there's no scales, there's no stickiness. It's just very slippery and very smooth and very short stapled. It's very warm. It's a hollow fiber because it's a hair fiber. And the prep that I had was a cloud. And so it was just all kind of jumbled up into a bag together. And I actually have a little bit more of this to spin. I'm hoping to get another skein like this as well. So it'll have two skeins. I don't know what the yardage on this is, but it's probably about 150 yards maybe. I'll unskein it for you guys so you can see it. Anyhow, I was spinning from the cloud. I used my Lendrum Very Fast Flyer, and I kind of just had been working on this in the background quietly in the evenings. Something to work on that's really, really super meditative and quiet. And those little bobbins, they fill up actually quite quickly, and I didn't weigh the fiber or try to divide it into 3 or anything like that. So I just kept ripping it off and holding it in the palm of my hand and just drawing back. I have a ton of video to share with you as I sort of put it together and edit it and get it all organized. So that will be coming up in the new year. But the spinning it like that, you fill up the bobbins like that, like so fast. And of course I wanted lots and lots and lots of twist in it because there's nothing to hold it together, like I was saying. So the singles were quite high twist. And then when I was plying, I was sitting at my Magicraft and I just made sure that every length of spinning from as I had the length of 3 singles that I was plying together, I actually counted treadles. I don't usually count treadles, but I did for this one. I sat and actually counted. So I think I put about 9 treadles in for every sort of from the orifice of the wheel to my hip bone, because it just needs so much twist. And then I washed it in very, very hot water to try to lock those fibers together. And I probably actually should have folded a little bit and gone from hot to cold to hot to cold. But in the end, I didn't. I might rewash it when I have the other skein and maybe do a comparison, do the other skein with the hot cold and then compare the two. But the cashmere definitely needs a lot of twist to sort of hold together, because if you really reef on this and you really pull it, it will break. Even though you've got that really lovely twist angle in there, it's just it's so delicate and fine. It's just lovely. Absolutely, Jenny. Squish a vision. That's totally what we need. Just reach through the camera and squish it. It is incredibly soft. It's next to the skin soft. And like for a baby or for somebody who's incredibly sensitive. This wasn't particularly inexpensive. Like fiber is quite expensive. But I'm excited. I've had it in my stash since Fibers West of, I want to say 2017, maybe 2008. No, 2017. And I was talking to my friend Kim McKenna about it because she actually was spinning it at the festival. And her and I were talking to Heidi, the farm owner, about the fiber and about her farming. And I've reached out to her to interview her and bring her on to Woolen Spinning Radio. And she had talked a lot about, just no matter how you spin it, it's going to come out fine. And the strength is in the singles. So the more singles you add, the stronger the yarn will be. So this 2-ply here looks amazing. It would make an incredible shawl. Actually, Diana's here today. Hi, Diana. I thought of those shawls that Sandra always spins and knits. She does all that support spindling and does those shawls. This was the kind of yarn that I thought about that she's always creating. And it was, the rest of us were always so ogling it. She would do hundreds and hundreds, thousands of yards of this kind of yarn out of these real luxury fibers. And then she does these massive, huge arm span width shawls and haps in lace. And that's totally what this yarn made me think of. But like I said, it's not super strong in the sense that, if you put it on a loom, and you use this as warp, and you really, um, tighten it down and put a ton of tension on it, it's gonna break. So when Kim and I were chatting, she had mentioned about maybe doing, if I were to weave this and do a woven stole, to do maybe like one end of the cashmere and then one end of like a wool silk blend, and then one end of the cashmere and then one end, and alternate them across the warp, or just do this as weft. So there's lots and lots of options, but I am thinking about weaving with this just because of the sheer amazingness, because I want it to be a shawl, some sort of a shawl, woven stole, knitted shawl, something. It depends on what I end up with for yardage from the other. I think I have 46 grams of the other. So it depends on between the two what I end up with for yardage, because there's quite a bit of yarn here. Like if like this, there's at least 150, maybe 200 yards. So I'll just hold it here for a minute so you can see the spinning. It's not super, super even in the sense that like it looks like a woolen spun yarn. I was really, really happy with how even it was. Long draw and spinning from the cloud and whatnot, they're not my most favorite ways to spin, although I am practicing and I am getting better. Especially, I think the spinning advent calendar will really help with that, because all of these will be spun long draw. And but I just, look at that, there's that sheen in there, even though it's woolen spun. I played around a little bit at the beginning as I was starting to spin. I was playing around because it's so short, right? So I was playing around a little bit with continuous back and a little bit of like short forward, but you just automatically default into long draw because there's just nowhere for the twist to go. You need that length and that space to work. And I got into this lovely flow where I was literally rocking back and forth, and it spun like that. Like honestly, this spun in a week, like 3 bobbins, 3 ply, plus this little bit of leftover from the 2 bobbins that were left. That's really fast. So it made me feel like I wasn't like it's this really expensive luxury fiber, and I was like, I'm not savoring this, it's spinning too fast. But then I was like, no, you know what? This is so enjoyable and I'm having so much fun. Who cares that it doesn't take too long? Because now I get to go on to the next, I think it's 46 grams, and work with that and then do a little bit of a comparison. So really fun. So I wanted to share that with you guys. 2021 is focused on luxury fibers in the Patreon content. So we're going to be looking at sort of luxury across the board. What does that mean? How do we define luxury? We'll be starting off in January with spinning wild silks and going through my silk sampler and just sharing with you some of my learnings. And then we will be, February, we'll sort of build on that and look at mulberry silk. And then in March, we will look at cashmere. So that will be sort of what we'll be looking forward to in the new year. And I used to call the monthly teaching content, and that's what, if you're a patron of the show, $3 or more a month, everybody gets that vlog. And so I asked the community what they wanted to call it, because I was like, I don't want to keep calling it the monthly spinning content. Like, it just doesn't, it describes what it is, but it's not very interesting. And it's always about, and for the last 2 years, it's been about 51 yarns. So every month's teaching vlog, teaching content video has been 51 yarns related. So, and not everybody was doing 51 yarns, but I think you guys still enjoyed watching them and enjoyed learning about the yarns as we worked through. Maybe you sort of almost feel like you worked through the study a little bit because of watching those videos every month. So I asked the community what we could call them. Anyways, they came up with spinning pearls. So I loved that. So spinning pearls will be released in January to everybody in the Patreon community. And that will sort of include one snippet of the overarching theme for that month. So January we'll start off with silk, February silk, and then we'll get into some of the other luxury fibers as the year goes on. So really exciting. I'm really excited about the content for next year. I've been working on some of it. As you can see, I've got the cashmere going. and I'm just really having a lot of fun. I've been knitting these little stockings. These are the Advent stockings. There's a pattern. I'll link it in the show notes. This is not hand spun. This is Jameson Spindrift. I have a red and white one that I did a couple years ago. I just have to sew the little button on the back. But I'm hoping I can knit a couple more of these before the month is through. And my plan was to knit a few of them. But, you know, best laid plans and all that. I have an old yarn in my stash. This is Panda from Sweet Georgia. I picked it up in 2000 and I want to say like 2008, 2009. I don't even think this is a colorway anymore. It's this really kind of swampy color. Some of it, excuse me, sorry, some of it was a 2-ply, some of it was a 3-ply, some of it was thicker, some of it was thinner. It was all over the place in terms of the spinning. Panda has bamboo, merino, and is it nylon? Bamboo, merino, nylon. Oh, that's one of my ties. And I was going to do socks for my mom for Christmas because I sort of needed like a little stocking stuffer to throw in. And I thought, oh, I'll do her a pair of socks. But I'm not sure that she'll wear them, and all of this yarn is all different gauge, but this is her favorite color. So what I ended up doing was taking the yarn, and this was the finer of the two skeins. So I'm holding this double to match the knitting weight of this yarn. And I'm actually doing another headband with a twist. So I'm about a third of the way through the first part here. Camera's a bit too zoomed for me, so let me just zoom it out. Yeah, and so I'm doing another headband with a twist, which I shared my other one with you last week, or if you follow me on Instagram, I posted a couple of photos of the headband. So this is, it's a little bit thicker because my mom has a lot of hair. So I made it a little bit wider than mine. And I'm just kind of working my way through. So I think I'm about halfway and finish this off this week. So that was that little project that I've just been working on when my wrist is getting sore. Before we get into my UK Shetland, I thought I would share with you my progress on my Tunic cardigan. I'm not sure we're going to get to community participation today. The podcast is going to be a long one. So this is my Tunic cardigan. I can't put it on my dress form. I tried to before the show started while I was on hold, getting the groceries sorted out. But as you can see, the front button band is all on stitches. So there's nowhere to like stretch it out. And I put a cable extender in here. These are my Addy Clicks, and I put the cable extender in, but it's still not long enough to be able to spread the stitches out and to really show you. So during our Patreon Maker Morning Zoom meeting on Thursday morning, I actually was able to finish off the shoulders. And after we got off the call later that day, I was able to do a 3-needle bind off and attach them. I added some short rows in here to just build up the shoulder a little bit because the pattern doesn't include that. And of course it's all seamed. And I did a little bit different construction. I followed the instructions in the pattern for the armhole shaping, but then I kind of did my own thing up here because in the pattern, the V is very, very deep. And I find on me, if it's a really super deep V, it's constantly coming open. So I started the V-neck a little bit higher, more like where I would want it, which is right sort of at the bra line, if you will. And so I did that and modified the front shaping a little bit. And then at tutoring, because it's almost 2 hours of tutoring that I have to wait for the kids on Thursday. And I wanted to go out for a walk. And I said to the kids, let's go for a walk, because I have one kid in the vehicle and then I have the other kid in the vehicle because they switch halfway through. But they refused to go outside. And so I did both of the armhole, the ribbing for the armholes. So I picked that up, got that done on both sides. So that is that. And then on Friday night, so last night, I started picking up for the button band. I don't know how many stitches are on here. I did not count them. There's probably 500, probably. And I got an inch of knitting done. So that's pretty good. An inch of because this is a 5-inch button band. So I am going to work my way out to 4 inches, which is what the waist is. And I'll put it on my dress form. I'll put a longer cable in. I may even have to put 2 needles in, so you've got like half of the stitches on one needle and half on the other. Just give myself that length. that I need. And just to see how much wider I want this collar to be, because 5 inches is pretty wide. And then I did the placement for the buttonholes just to kind of see how they would work out, because I did go to my local yarn shop because I've been really trying to support them. You know, this is a tough time for everyone, especially small business owners. And she's so cute. Marilyn is so cute. She's one of the employees, but she's a good friend, and she's me and Diana. She's in our guild, and she does a lot of volunteer work. She just like gave me the whole canister. She's like, here, just have them. It's like $15 worth of buttons. Just have the canister. So these are 45mm buttons. They look like this. They were the only ones in the store that really worked well. I hate picking buttons, you guys. It is not what I like to do at all. I know some people see it as part of the creative process. It is. I just personally don't like it. Anyway, Sue really helped, and so did Marilyn, and we picked out these. You can't tell because of the light, but the buttons actually completely match the sandstone color in, I think it's called sand or sandstone, in the knitting. So these look darker than they actually are. They're actually the same color. And because you need such big buttons for this, otherwise they get completely lost in the knitting, there will be 6 of these all the way down the front. So I'll put them on and see what I think, and then I'll go from there. So I have 7 just in case I lose one, because I needed 6. So maybe, fingers crossed, and touch blue and all of that superstitious stuff, this will be done next weekend, because I would love to get this done before the end of the year. This has certainly been a labor of love, and I'm ready to have it done. And I wanted to show you guys the back, because look at all of it's all mosaic. For those who haven't seen me talk about this before, this is all mosaic knitting. Look at that texture. So the only thing about a pattern like this is that if you make a mistake, you have to go back, because you can see it. And I did make a mistake in the skirt portion. There is a mistake down here. I'm not going to point it out because you can't see it. I asked like 5 people, can you see that there's a mistake down here? If you study it and you knew this pattern inside and out, backwards and forwards, right side up, upside down, inside out, all the things, you would see it. You would see the mistake. And those of you who have a really keen eye probably can see it as well. But I was already up here by the time I realized that I had made a mistake. But that is one thing, like if you don't go back and fix this stuff, you can see it. And when you go to pick up the long loose strands to create those loops here, if you don't do those properly and you don't have them in the right spot, they don't line up. So as you work up the pattern, they're supposed to, all the dark ones and the light ones are supposed to line up, and they're all supposed to be like in a column, right? And so if you're doing decreases on the outside edges for your V-neck and for your armhole shaping, you can really get yourself into a world of hurt, because all of this will no longer line up and match up. So you really, thankfully by this point of the pattern, I almost had it memorized. There's too many instructions, you can't memorize it, but you know intuitively where you're going next and what you're doing next. And so I was able to just keep track of kind of where I was in the pattern and be able to kind of match it up. It's a 5-stitch repeat, so at least if you can figure out where your first stitch of your next repeat is, you can work backwards. So that wasn't too bad. And I got a pretty nice edge for the pickup. It's not perfect. There are spots where I maybe could have done a bit better, but for the most part, once it's washed and blocked, it'll really look quite nice. So that is that. It is an epic vest, sweater, dress, skirt. I don't know what it is. They call it a tunic cardigan. I guess that's what it is, I guess. But man, what a huge amount of work. Huge amount of work, you guys. So I actually did cast something on because I've been chatting with Mina of Knitting Expat. She had messaged me on Ravelry, and I really wanted a Christmas cowl or shawl or something. And I remembered that she had gifted me and I was, I had said that I would do a review on the podcast, and then of course life happened, of her new Cowls book. So her new Cowls book, I will link it in the show notes. It's a collection of cowls that she's designed for, inspired by her heritage and by her country of origin, which is Iran, and then of the Persian rugs that she grew up in, the color that she grew up with in her home, in her family home. And I have to say, before I forget, the photography in it is fantastic. And I think that the models are her mom and her husband and friends. And the photos are just lovely of the people in her life. So I've always really wanted to knit with this yarn, because this was a crepe yarn that I did, and I was really disappointed with it. It was Nest Fiber Studios. It was a club colorway. I think it was Noel. Can't remember. Anyways, I was really disappointed with how it knit up, and I wished that in the end I had spun a fine singles and just chain plied, but I wanted to try the crepe method, and I did that, and it just, because all the colors mixed together, you end up with this color twisted yarn of lights and darks, like of the red and the tealy blue, and I just was really disappointed with it. But I wanted to do something kind of holiday inspired that I could work on throughout the holiday and have for Christmas next year. I didn't want another shawl. I didn't want a toque. I didn't want a color work in a sweater, because I didn't want to make another sweater. And so I started looking at Mina's patterns in her cowl book. And then it was funny because she messaged me on Ravelry. So it was sort of a little bit kismet. And so I chose the pattern called Evil Eye. And the reason why I chose this one is because I think the photo of her mom is just so sweet. I love the design, but I also really liked that it was one of the patterns that fit into the any gauge. So you can follow the pattern and knit with the yarn called for, or you can go with your gauge and work backwards to figure out how many chart repeats you need to do. So that's actually what I'm doing. So I cast on 20 fewer stitches than the pattern calls for, and I'm knitting on slightly bigger needles, and you can see I'm actually really, and then you start the pattern off by knitting about 10 inches of just stockinette in a tube. It's a tubular cowl. And then you start the first chart to fade in, and then you do the color work, and then you fade out again. And that's when you graft the two ends together to make the tube. Anyways, I have sat on this yarn forever, and of course it's a 3-ply because of the crepe. So crepes are made, for those who don't know about crepe yarns, basically you spin 2 singles in the same direction, and you make them a little bit higher twist than you normally would, and then you ply those together with more twist than you normally would. So you end up with this really super high twist 2-ply, and then you take the 3rd singles, and that singles was spun in the same direction that the yarn was plied in. So you have for me, for example, I had an S plied yarn, 2-ply yarn, and an S spun singles, both quite high twist, and then you crepe it. And so you put it back through the wheel going Z in the opposite direction to create this wrapping kind of effect. So this is balled up, so you can't see it perfectly, but there's the outer part of the yarn. Actually, this is a really good section for me to really show you. Let me unwrap a little bit of this, and I can show you this. I'll wrap it around my fingers for you. I'm losing my voice for some reason. So you can see how it creates this almost like braid-like appearance. And that's that singles wrapped around the outside of the 2-ply. And this was a yarn that was highlighted. It's not new, but it was highlighted, I think, by Debbie Held in one of the, in the sock issue of Ply magazine. And for a while there, everybody was making crepe yarn as sock yarn. And, you know, a lot of people feel that it works really well in socks and holds up really well in socks. I still have yet to try. I would really like to make a pair of socks. I think there was an article in that same magazine, was it Pimmy? She put all of the swatches under a belt sander to see which of the swatches would stand up. And I know the one that did the worst was the opposing ply. And I can't remember where the crepe yarn lined up. Maybe if somebody remembers. Anyhow, so this is the knitting thus far, and I'm actually kind of surprised at how lovely it looks. So this is the stockinette section, and the contrast color for the Evil Eye. This is the Evil Eye color work there. So that's what the color work looks like. Will be white. So it will fade into white, where you'll have this as the background, and then the white will be the contrast color, because I'm just going for like Christmas, right? I want it to really, really look like a Christmas kind of thing when it's finished. And then it'll fade, and then the pattern reverses, and this will become the color work, and the white will become the background. So anyhow, that is my plan. That's what I'm working on. And it's just something in the background. And once the tunic cardigan is off the needles, then I'll focus on this and the headband and just kind of give myself a bit of a break. Okay, let's talk about spinning. So let me go to spinning. I'm going to go to the corner here. And we are going to talk about my Shetland. So, oh, and let me just have a look at the chat. You know what, Sharon? It's so funny. You would say it would take me forever. She's saying about the ribbing on the tunic cardigan. I think it is going to take a long time. I'm working tomorrow, and I have a couple of research this week for my CPR and all that stuff at the hospital that we have to do every year. And I am fully expecting that this is going to take all week. And so I'm hoping that while I'm waiting at some of this stuff, and like all my breaks tomorrow at work, I can work on it a little bit. So this is some Shetland that I got from my friend Catherine at Small Bird Workshop. And this is a pin drafted UK Shetland. It is, it has all the colors of Shetland in them. I think they probably just threw a whole bunch of different fleeces together. And there's black in here, and gray, and dark brown. There is, in certain sections, there's even been some creamy white. And I started off spinning the first bobbin using long draw. So this is me at my Lundrum Saxony. I wanted to spin this on the Saxony because I really love the double drive and long draw. Just this lovely dance starts to happen, which is why I wanted the Saxony in the first place. And what I had done with this originally when I first started spinning, and I have done the first bobbin thus far, is I had pre-attenuated some of it, and it, you know, of course, as you're spinning and as you're working on this, like the rest of the fiber is sort of on the floor. And I had, at one point I grabbed out my spinning apron and put it in the side pocket of my apron. But the problem is that it's like too close to me. Like it was too, with the side apron on the pocket on the apron for long draw, you just can't get that distance and that arm span. So, oh, thank you, Diane. So the crepe yarn lasted 60, well, so 1 hour longer under the sander than the 3-ply, and 20 minutes longer than the, not than the crepe. Do you mean the opposing ply, maybe? Yeah. Looking at those cowls reminds me of how much of knitting was originally taken from weaving projects. Isn't that so true, Meg? So the cowls in Mina's book, they very much look woven, and of course they're all color work, and yeah, a Norwegian sweater was made from woven bands sewn together. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. Yes, then the opposing ply. Thanks, Diane. So, and 20 minutes longer than the opposing ply. So quite a hardy sock yarn. So anyway, so this is how I first started spinning it, and I was sort of filling my bobbin quite quickly, and as you can see, this roving, it's pin drafted. There's a lot of bits in it. There's a lot of neps and noils. You can see how uneven it is. There were sections that I had a bit of difficulty drafting apart because the lock was literally still intact. And there's some areas of, like, you know, shortcuts that are not very nice. But the wool itself is really springy. It's cushiony. It's woolly. It's very soft. I'm actually really surprised at how soft it is. And as it's spun, it's continued to be very soft. Like, it feels soft on the bobbin. So I decided to sort of abandon ship with this way of spinning. And I have been working through reading Stephanie Gustad's new book, A Spinner's Dozen. And um, this book, I keep meaning to talk about it on the podcast, but to be honest with you, I find another gem and then I just keep on reading and I forget to tell you about it because it is unbelievable. And the I have to say the illustrations in it are just absolutely dear. They are so lovely. And my friend Kim and I were talking it opened to the page that I wanted. We were talking about distaffs and distaves and distaff spinning. And one of the things about what I've been finding recently, and I've been chatting with my friends Leanne and Laureline about this, is this frustration that we have that our fiber ends up on the floor. And we've gone to all this effort of like pre-drafting and pre-attenuating, and this just kind of isn't working. So I've started playing around with distaffs. And I took a whole bunch of the tips and pointers that Stephanie shares in her book. This is a book that's available on the Ply Magazine website. It's published by Ply Publishing. And Stephanie, for those of you who don't know who Stephanie is, she's an absolute wealth of information. She is the late Aidan Almus's wife, Alden Amos's wife. And she is just, oh my goodness, if you ever have a chance to meet her or see her, like and when she's filmed and stuff, she's just lovely. And this book she illustrated it herself, and there's the I really enjoy reading books and articles and literature that is written as if somebody's talking to you. And I say that because a lot of the information that I have sort of had interacted with over the years is more technical, and because of my research background for my graduate work, it sometimes it feels like when you're reading some of that stuff, it feels like it's a computer that typed it and they're talking to a computer, and because it's so technical, right? There's a very technical way of writing, and it doesn't take much to make the writing a bit more interactive and a bit more engaging. And so through this whole book, I feel like I'm having a conversation, and like she's sitting with me over coffee and just going through the tools that I have in my stash and just chatting with me about them. And I feel like a book like this is just the beginning. Like I feel like she probably has so much more to share, which is really kind of overwhelming because the amount of information in this book is already quite extensive. So the distaff spinning, so there's so many different ways to manage a distaff. So I'm just playing. I by no means am an expert, like even a bit. I'm just playing with it and kind of trying to figure out like what works for me and my ergonomics, my setup, what I like, what I don't like. And so this is what I was doing. I was just playing. And sorry, the camera couldn't focus on my fingers here. It was focusing below me because it's too fine, the spinning, but you can still see the mechanics of it. So I included it. And it was really funny because Kim and I were talking about how they maybe would have handled some of the distaffs in the past, because these are not new fiber management tools. And we were talking about how you could put a distaff into the center of an IKEA stool that has a hole. And sure enough, it's right there. It's in the book. And so I had a good laugh because my friend Kim and I were literally just talking about it again. And then I opened up the book and had reminded and was rereading the distaff section, and just so many things. So that's how I pivoted. I'll answer your guys' question in just a sec, because I know you guys are chatting away and have a whole bunch of questions. That's why I decided to kind of pivot with this. So taking this fiber, what I ended up doing was going from one end to the other and pre-attenuating and pre-drafting. So I went all the way down and just aired it out and sort of got it decompacted, if you will, and detangled a little bit, and kind of added some of that air back in. And I just went all the way down. And I have just this little bit left that rolled under my chair, and I didn't realize that I hadn't done it as well, because I would have done it as well, but maybe it's kismet so that I can show you guys. And then I loaded it onto the distaff by just twisting it at a 45-degree angle. And I think if you watch the Advent vlogs, I'll be showing this on there, because I've been practicing this and doing this every day with the advent spin, just to kind of get used to it and kind of figure out some different ways of managing it and dealing with the fiber. And that just kind of airs it out and it helps it to draft a little bit better. And then you can see that instead of kind of defaulting to a long draw, it sort of meant that with the twist still going between my forward hand and my fiber supply hand, the back hand, I was able to kind of draft it apart a little bit more easily, while still maintaining that kind of woolly nature of the yarn. And the last part of this bobbin and the second bobbin is spinning up much more nicely, much nicer, and I'm liking it a lot better. It does not have the top coat in it. It was separated. I'm pretty sure it's separated because there's no great question, Kelly. There's nothing coarse about this whatsoever. It is so soft. I'm actually shocked at how soft it is. So, which is probably why Catherine got it, because it is so soft. It's just really too bad that in the pin drafting, these neps developed, which seem to be able to be drafted apart. It's just not, yeah, it's just, we get so used to certain types of prep, and then when we're thrown a different type of prep like this, it's an opportunity to just try spinning a different way and thinking outside the box, which is kind of what I've ended up having to do. And I'm really liking the yarn. So do you find that distaves lend themselves to certain? No, Eve, I have no idea. I have no idea yet. I'll have to play around and report back, because I've seen Kim do every single type of drafting with her distaves. I've seen her do short forward, I've seen her do short back, I've seen her do continuous back, I've seen her do long draw. I don't think it's a certain drafting method. I think it's the fiber prep that dictates more than anything. And you can put the distaff anywhere. You can put it on your body, you can put it in your belt, you can put it on a stool like I just told you. You can wear a wrist distaff on your wrist and hang your fiber that way. It's really just a way of managing our fiber. This is not new. This goes back as old as time. And it's just something that I'm playing with. So this distaff is incredibly light, which is why I ended up holding it. I know Leanne was playing around with sticking the distaff into the seat cushions in her cushion, in her sofa. And actually, funnily enough, Stephanie talks about that in the book. She talks about how she used to use, I think it was a Southwestern spindle. And she would stick it into her Southwestern spindle. She would wind her Southwestern spindle with yards and yards of sliver above the spindle whorl and stab the bare pointy end into the corner of at the intersection of the back arm and the cushion. Isn't that cool? So, like, I think that's fantastic. And a world, we were talking about, the 51 yarn study, 51 yarns, you spin one yarn and you have another 51 yarns to spin. That's totally how I feel about this. This has sort of, within one yarn, has, caused me to experiment and make 3 or 4 different yarns. The skein, the finished skein of yarn will be a bit higgledy-piggledy in terms of like consistency and twist and whatnot, but man, I have experimented with so much in this one spin that I don't mind at all. So it's all about practice. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm not getting the hang or the advantage. Yeah, it's true, Diana. It's like the support spindles, right? If you want to be really good at support spindling, we just have to keep working at it. So finding a good Shetland is a little hard sometimes. Yeah, it's funny, Zan, I've spun some amazing Shetland. I've spun Shetland that's sort of a bit more like this. I'm happy to play with it because I just see it as like, the more of it we spin, the better it gets. The history of distaves is fascinating. Yeah. Loves high. That's so cool. Sorry, Megan. I stumbled over reading your comment there because I was reading ahead. So lovers would hide notes in the middle of the distave to see how fast their future wives could spin. I love that. In some ways I hate that, but that's awesome. Okay, so we have a little bit of time for community participation. So let's just go into that really quickly. Well, not quickly, but you guys know what I mean. This is from last week. So I wonder, did I not update our photos for this week? You know what? I didn't update the photos. So you know what? We'll do community participation next week. Kaylee was going to share, I had some stuff from Kaylee to share this week, and I had some stuff from Megan and Kat. So we will do that next week because we chatted a lot today and we've got queries and explorations starting in about 20 minutes. So I will start the Zoom meeting for you guys at 1:45, and then we'll sort of plan to get started at about 10. So thank you so much for being here today, and we will do community participation next week. The November giveaway, I will draw next week because I need to take the comments from Ravelry as well as YouTube and then put them into a random number generator. So we will do that next week for the November giveaway. And then for December, I just want you to tell us about your holiday plans. We're all having a different Christmas this year. It's not going to look the same as our Christmases past. It's 1 year. We can do this for 1 year. And so comment in the episode thread on Ravelry. I'll link it in the show notes and in the live chat. Or just comment here on YouTube if you're not a Ravelry user. And just tell us about your holiday plans. You know, how are you going to connect with friends and family? For some of us, our friends and family aren't local anyways, so we would always be connecting with them in different ways anyways. But yeah, we're all kind of doing some different stuff, and maybe tell us about what you're planning on making and working on, because maybe this year won't be so crazy in terms of all of the things that we have to do. Maybe we'll actually get a little bit more crafting time this year through the holiday season. So for those who don't celebrate it this time of year but still take a rest, please share with us what you do and what your traditions are in your family. It doesn't have to all be about Christmas and the holidays. For some people, this is just a time of rest and relaxation because they don't celebrate. So please tell us about those things as well. I'd love to hear about that as well. And join, if you're curious about the alongs that I was mentioning at the beginning of the show, please just have a look at the show notes and jump in. Our natural shades along, many of us have started spinning. My original plan was to use this in my natural shades along sweater that I'm working on. But once I get this plied, I'm going to knit up a swatch and see what I think. So that may be kind of on the back burner for like that Shetland would be in that sweater. I'm kind of not sure. And I bought a little bit of fiber from Liz at Kingdom to use in that sweater as well. So I'm going to lay out my shades, take a photo, and then start spinning in the new year. So that's something that I would like to work on over the course of 2021 because I think I have 5 colors to spin. And I just need to do some swatching to make sure that they're all spun at the same knitting weight gauge, which I think is DK or a heavy sport. I can't remember what the gauge is for the pattern. So I need to figure out 2-ply, 3-ply, and then go from there. So before I start waxing poetic about other projects that I'm dreaming about, because this is what I love to talk about with you guys, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you next week. Bye, everyone.